was still a lot of fallout from a lot of the C's that had previously worked out there. Similar to what I experienced out there in Salinas when Rico and Lobo went on their little rip out there. You know, they discouraged a lot of homeboys, whacking Mike Eel, whacking some other little youngsters that got killed out there, killing little man. Those types of things that happened, it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. My own policies out there, all the members were required to do certain things, throughout the day. I didn't want them to feel like, we were riding them, but when you're out there running a regiment, you got to make sure that your manpower is doing what they're supposed to be doing and that they're on track. All right, you guys, it's episode 54 of Inner Demons, and without further ado, I'm going to get straight to it. So check it out, you guys. I did all my homework. I watched the last episode, episode 53, so I caught back up to where I was at. Now, let me jump straight back into this. Now, in the last episode, I told you guys how we found the GPS tracking devices. And like I said, this should have been a blessing in disguise. This should have been an opportunity for us to say, you know what, let's pull back. Let's reevaluate what we're doing, or you know what, let's just stop everything, wait till the heat cools down, and then we'll see where we're at before we start moving product and start pushing the regiment forward again. But that's not what happened. I knew from back in the early to mid, not the early, I want to say around the mid 90s. That's around the time when I started to see things for what they were. Around the time when a lot of guys started walking away from the organization, a lot of guys started dropping out. It was a daily occurrence. A lot of NR members were locking it up on the main lines. It was, it was clear, at least from my perspective, that there was something going wrong with the organization, and it was at the top. Anytime you have that many individuals walking away from the organization, there's some kind of common denominator. There's something that a lot of people are seeing, or there's something that's discouraging them, and it's the way that we were pushing a line against the Norteños, the guys that we were supposed to be protecting. The NR started strong-arming those guys. They started bullying them, and, they started checking out. That's basically what happened. But I knew back in those days, around the mid-90s, that things were going in the wrong direction. I seen it. I started to see things for what they were. The blinders started coming off. Now, it didn't discourage me to the point to where I actually thought about dropping out myself. I wasn't going to do that. I'm not the type of cat that can do that. I was committed to this organization no matter what, for the good or the bad. I figured as long as it didn't involve me, I was going to continue to push forward. And that's what I did. So, I knew that from that point on, though, that we were all expendable. It didn't matter who you were. It didn't matter what position you held, how high you were within the organization, especially when money got involved. When we took our vision to the streets and we started, we took a strong emphasis in the street regiments, and we started to try to generate money for the organization. That's when we put monetary gain before the organization, before the cause. That became the new cause. And that's kind of when everything just died out. Anyway, so, like I said, this should have been an opportunity for us to take advantage of finding those GPS tracking devices. And I don't know, I honestly can't tell you guys that it would have made a difference. Who knows? I don't know how far the investigation had progressed at that point. I don't know if it would have made a difference. Maybe we could have, maybe we would have stopped everything, kicked back, maybe let a little bit of time elapse, stop doing what we were doing, and maybe they would have done the same thing. Maybe they would have just kicked back and continued to watch us and waited for us to start back up again. I don't know. That probably would have happened. But either way, it should have been, if anything, it should have, I still think that we should have been told to shut everything down. At least So for moral reasons, at least, so we, those of us that were involved would have felt like, damn, these guys, at least they care about us. They care about whether we get busted or not. They're not putting money before our freedom. That discouraged a lot of people, and a lot of people seen it for what it was. Anyways, Baby Joker included. I know he did. His second in command, you know, Pony wasn't the smartest individual, but he did. I sat my regiment down and I let everybody know what was going on. I kept everybody abreast of everything that was happening. And even a lot of them were like, damn, leadership should let us like just shut everything down. But I was in a predicament where I was caught between a rock and a hard place. I couldn't stop. I had to do what was expected of me or what they demanded of me. So anyways, after that situation happened, all I could do was continue to work out there. And that's what I did. I focused on getting the limousine business established, getting it to the point to where I was able to control the books. It's not as easy as just, writing a bunch of numbers down. Money laundering it's a very long, careful, tedious process that you really got to know your bookkeeping and all that stuff. So, I had to make sure that everything checked out, that, I was running the numbers right and all that stuff. So I was focusing on that. I was focusing on legitimizing the company, getting everything up to code, making sure that we had all the permits, making sure that we had, the drivers, and we weren't leaving ourselves open to liability. Now, at this point, I want to say this is when I started to meet Julio. This is when Julio was ready to meet me, the connection. Bling Bling had basically told me one time, hey, I talked to Julio and, he wants to meet you, bro. We had been doing a lot of business with him. We had been moving a lot of weight. So he wanted to know who I was. He wanted to meet me. Who's this guy that is moving all this weight? By that time, we were moving like 20 to 25 pounds a month. And we had just started to network with Watsonville, San Francisco, and Salinas. So the dope, we were moving the dope. And, he was like, man, these guys can push a lot of weight. And honestly, I didn't think that he could, I didn't think he could provide as much dope that we needed. I didn't think that he could meet the demand that we needed, but it was nothing to him. I want to tell you guys like this. There's one time, and I'm spinning way ahead of myself here, but just to give you guys an idea, there was one time when I realized how much dope that this dude had. And it would be later on, months later, when I had been working with him for a while, and I got to know one of his delivery guys. He was in a little green Honda, and he was one of the guys that I usually would meet. He would drop off 15, 20, 25 pounds, whatever it was at that time that we were working. Now, on this one occasion, I used to keep a handheld, what do you call those things? A handheld scanner in my car so that I could listen to it, while I was out in the field. And then I used to keep one at the house. So I was always listening to police activity around the east side of San Jose and those frequencies that were in that area. And there was this one occasion where, I heard they were doing a bust. They did a bust. And as soon as I heard a green Honda, I was like, man, I wonder if that's Julio's boy. Anyway, I started listening to it. And the more I listened to it, the more it seemed like it was one of his people, because it was a green Honda, the description of the individual that they arrested, and then the amount of dope. They had like 20 pounds that they ended up catching this guy with. Now, later on in the day, I believe Bling Bling might have called me and had told me, he was like, hey, one of old boys runners got caught early this morning. And I was like, bro, you know what? I was listening to the scanner. I think I heard that shit as it was happening. And he was like, yeah, man, they caught him on the east side somewhere. I don't know what it was. I don't think it was anything like an expired tag or anything, because they were legit as far as all that stuff. that would be stupid to move that much dope and to have an expired, license plate, a tag, or something like that, wrong with the vehicle. I want to say it was some type of traffic violation that he ended up getting caught up and maybe did a rolling stop or something like that. I don't know, but they got him and they got the dope. And I honestly thought that that was gonna affect business. I was concerned about it. I was like, fuck, they hit old boy for 20 pesos, man. This is gonna affect business. And so by that time, I was already in good with Julio. So, I continue to stay in touch with Bling Bling anyway, because, we were involved in our business investments with the limousine shop and all that stuff. So I didn't completely cut him loose after I got up under Julio. Anyways, later on that day, I talked to Julio and I had told him, I was like, hey, man, I heard that one of your boys got busted. And he was like, yeah, man, it's an unfortunate thing. He ended up getting caught up and, I'm getting him a lawyer and I'm taking care of his legal issues. And I was like, hey, man, that's not going to affect business, huh? And he looked at me, he was like, are you kidding? He was like, hell no, that's nothing, man. Don't worry about it. There's nothing's changed. I mean, it's good. And from that point, that's when I knew that this dude had a lot of, he had access at a lot of product, whether it was his or whether it was somebody else. Never did it occur to me that he was part of the golf cartel. I wouldn't find that out till later. I just thought he was a paisa with a shitload of dope. But, obviously later on, I told you guys I would find out that he was actually part of the golf cartel. Now, I told you guys that, around that time I had started to get to know Julio. And, the first time that Bling Bling had brought me over to meet him, I want to say it was off of Poco Way when he had that apartment over there. And I had been to that apartment before I met his younger brother, but I had still never met Julio at that point. So, like I said, it got to the point where Julio was like, these guys are moving a lot of dope. I'm kind of partnered up with them, but I haven't met him yet. So I'm ready to take that step. He was invested in the limo business as a silent partner. I was involved in that. So, it got to the point to where it was that time. So I met him off of Poco Way, and it wasn't no elaborate meeting or nothing like that. It was just basically I walked in, we talked. I told him I was appreciative of the fact that, he was working with us, that everything was good. I told him, I got access to a lot of manpower, a lot of people that can continue to push the product, that I was networking throughout different parts of the Bay Area. And he told me, he was like, hey, man, he was like, on this end, we got the product covered. He was like, everything's good, man. I like the way we're doing business. The money's coming in. You guys are never short. So we had a good business relationship. It was a symbiotic working relationship that benefited both of us. The money was coming in and, the product was coming in on our end. Now, that was the first time I met Julio. From that point on, he would start to come around after that. He came over to the limousine business on a couple occasions just to come over there to see what we were doing. Again, he was invested as a silent partner. So, he started popping up. He started getting more comfortable with, coming around now that he had met me. And he had also felt more comfortable with meeting some of the manpower. Now, at around this same time, there was an issue with the apartment on Poco Way. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, something spooked him to the point of he needed to move all his product out of there. Either something happened, he seen something he didn't like, he heard something, or whatever it was. He ended up going over there with all his guys, and they packed up everything and they moved it out. So at that point, he was looking for a new location to keep his dope, to safe house his dope. Now, right around the same time, I told you guys that there was a guy, in my regiment that I'm not going to mention him by name because he doesn't want to be mentioned. He was a youngster that I took up under my wing. The cat reminded me of myself when I was younger. There was a lot of, he just had a lot of characteristic traits that I had when I was his age. He was a rider, he was somebody that, that I took a liking to. But at this point, his girl was pregnant and he was running on parole. And I know how it feels to miss the birth of your babies, your kids. So I wanted to make sure that he stayed out at least for that. I want to say she was like 7 or 8 months pregnant. So it was like 2 months, and she was gonna have the baby. And my whole thing at that point was, you know what? There was an apartment that opened up right next to my apartment in Campbell. And I rented that apartment for the purpose of putting him and his girl in that apartment. I told him, look, bro, I'm gonna put you and her up in here. You guys don't have to do shit. I'll pay the rent. I'll make sure that your electricity bill's paid. I'll put food, on the table for you guys. All I want you to do is to just kick your feet up, stay home, don't do nothing, bro. Just kick back with your girl, take care of her until she has the baby. Once she has the baby, you're here for that. You get to be a part of that whole process. Then turn yourself in, go do your parole violation, get that shit out the way, bro. And then you come back home and you won't have to worry about running. I told you guys before, I ran from parole a few times, and it takes a lot of energy. It's frustrating. You can't be at certain places. Other people don't want you around because you're hot. It's not a good thing. There was a couple times when I had to run from parole, and it was exhausting, man. It got to the point where I was just like, I'm ready to go back. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of ducking and dodging these fools. So I know what he was going through. I could relate to it. Anyways, so I rented the apartment. I put him up in the apartment. Now, at this point, they didn't really have nothing in the apartment except for, there was a few things that I put in there to try to help him. There was a bed, a couch, and just some miscellaneous stuff. They had everything that they needed in the kitchen. I was right next door, so they didn't have to worry about all that. Whatever they needed, I was right there. I had them. So at that same time, though, this is when, Julio needed a place to keep his product. Now, all this was happening at the same time. He never approached me about that apartment, at least not at that point. So what ended up happening is, I'm continuing to focus on the things that I need to focus on out there. And I'm trying to take care of this brother. I'm making sure that he's got everything that he needs. I'm trying to keep him off the streets because, at the time he had a problem with an addiction to meth as well. And he couldn't stay home. I told him, bro, you don't got to do nothing. Stay off the streets, though. He would sneak out like a kid, man. You know what I mean? Like a kid jumping out the window and shit. I told him, all you got to do is just kick back. You got it made, bro. You don't got to pay no bills. You don't got to do nothing but stay home. Obviously, I couldn't babysit him. I couldn't be there all the time. But, there were times when he would go out and he would end up getting involved in some shit. And I thought he was going to end up getting caught up. Anyway, because they didn't have nothing, they had all their stuff in a storage. There was a storage place that was off of Old Oakland Road in San Jose. And he, had asked me a couple times. He was like, B, I need to go out there to this storage place and, get a lot of, get some stuff that we need, bedding and some of our clothes and cosmetics and just a bunch of miscellaneous stuff that we need. Is there a chance that you can drive us out there and get it? And I told him, hey, bro, we can do it like this week or something and we'll get it done. I'll try to get you over there tomorrow or something. So that was a plan that I had set for the next day or for the following day or whatever. Now, in the meantime, in between time. So, one of the things that, a couple of these individuals would do when they would come over there to Campbell that I really wasn't feeling, like Angel Martinez was one. He's one that I told you guys about. I want to say it was in the last episode about being a burnout, a KJ burnout, not having all his brain cells, doing dumb shit. You know what I mean? Horse feathers. You know what I'm saying? Just doing dumb shit like a teenager. He didn't conduct himself like an NR member or somebody that was functioning in a regiment. And I'll give you guys an example. Now, they would come over to Campbell and they would kick it with me. a lot of the times I'd be out in the carport, or, I'd be upstairs doing whatever I was doing. And these guys would, some of them would be posted up out front. Some of them would be by my cars in the carport. But what they would do was, that's when, by that time, I knew this was a Sureño neighborhood. There were Sureños that were, basically, they were on Cadillac, the next street over. But that area right there, they were saturated. It was one of their hoods. And, I would see him from time to time, but I would see him in passing, and it wasn't no big deal. I wasn't trying to gangbang out there at that time. And if I wasn't trying to do it on my doorstep so that they would know where I lived. I had my girl staying there. So, you don't shit in your own backyard. And, that's something that at least I respected. But these individuals would come over there. There was a couple of them, and they'd see these Sureños walk by, and they jam them up and tell them to take off their blue belt, or they tell them to take their shoes off, and they'd have this cat walk down the street with this in his socks. That's the type of shit they were doing. And then when I would find out about it, I'd get on their ass. Bro, you're doing that shit in front of my pad? You know what I'm saying? And, you think these cats don't know where I live? Knock that shit off. I used to have to get on them about that. Angel was one of them. So, there was a couple situations that happened like that I dealt with, and it fizzled out. It didn't really go nowhere. But, on the morning, on one morning when we woke up, we were gonna go to PG&E to pay the homie's electric bill that was next door in the apartment next door, the one that I was looking out for. He needed to pay his electric bill, so I was like, bro, let's go knock it out. Let me go grab a couple things real quick, and we'll go take care of it right now. So, I went back up to the apartment, and he's outside, and there was this youngster that used to ride up and down the street on a bike. I used to see him all the time. Sometimes I'd be in my window, and I'd look out and I'd see him, and he'd throw up all his little gang signs. And I used to I would look at him, and I just kind of laugh, man, like, come on, bro. You know what I'm saying? What are you doing? But on this particular morning, that youngster was riding by on his bike, and the homie was out there. He was posted up, like, on the sidewalk. So this cat on the bike they ended up crossing paths right there. I don't know what happened. I don't know who said what first, but I'm coming out the apartment, and I look, and all I see is these two, like, there's a confrontation, and next thing I know, my boy's rushing this dude. Shout out to the Southsiders. Shout out to the upstaters, man. Nothing but respect. You guys already know I'm even wearing my blue shirt, man. So you guys already know what it is. Anyway, so I see my boy rush this individual, and regardless to whether or not he was in the right or wrong, if, I see one of my boys go into effect, I'm going to go into effect myself. I'm not going to ask no questions at the time, obviously. I'm just going to, he went in on him, and when I seen that, I came down the stairs and I barreled into him, and we got on him, and we smashed him. We ended up smashing the dude. Dude ended up taking off. Homeboy took his, he even took his bike, because he grabbed the bike by the handlebars, and he ended up throwing the bike into the, on the sidewalk, and that's when we got on him, and the dude took off. Now, just because he's on a bike, don't think we're talking about like some 12-year-old kid. This dude was a grown man, but he was on a fucking bike. So anyway, after that happened, I was actually upset. I told the homie, like, bro, why did you do that? Why would you do something like that in front of my apartment, bro? I told you guys, I've been telling you guys to knock that shit off. Bro, if you guys kick something off in front of my apartment, you guys get into an altercation with these dudes, you're going to go home that night, or you're going to leave. And guess what? I'm going to be the one that's going to end up getting retaliated against. I'm the one that's going to have to deal with the repercussions of something like that. I have no problem with dealing with somebody somewhere away from my pad, but not on my fucking doorstep, bro. Stop doing that, homeboy. You know what I'm saying? And, he apologized, but the damage was done. The damage was done. We ended up throwing that bike in the carport, threw it in the back of my El Camino. We jumped in my truck and we smashed off to go pay PG&E. Now, we're on our way to PG&E, and I don't know if you guys, well, a lot of you guys don't know, obviously, the schematics of San Jose, Campbell in conjunction with San Jose, how far it is, where the PG&E place is. It's pretty far. It's a good 20 to 30-minute drive. So, we get over there, we get all the way to PG&E. We get up in there, we pay the bill. Right when we're coming out, I get a phone call from my girl, Vicky, and she's crying, she's screaming. She's like, Boxer, they're breaking out all the windows. They're throwing rocks through the windows. They got the apartment surrounded. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? Tell me, what are you talking about? She's talking fast and I could barely, hey, tell me what the fuck you're talking about. Slow down and tell me. So she's telling me, she's like, there's Sureños out here. They got the whole apartment surrounded. They're breaking all the windows out. I'm like, get the fuck away from the windows. Get in the living room and just stay by the door. You know what I'm saying? I'll be there right now. Like, I'm like 20 minutes away, man. I'm not even gonna lie. For those of you that are familiar with San Jose and Campbell and you know how far that distance is, man, I jumped in that truck. I jumped in my truck and I floored it literally from the PG&E all the way back to Campbell. I drove through red lights. I drove up on sidewalks. I was driving reckless just to get there. All I could think about was that they were gonna do something to hurt her. They were gonna get in the apartment and maybe, do some kind of physical harm to her. And that's all that was on my mind. And, when I'm driving, I didn't care about the cops. I didn't care about getting pulled over. I didn't give a fuck about none of that. I just needed to get there. Now, as we're driving there, I'm telling them, bro, listen to me. You need to call some other homies. Call them and tell them to get over there right now. There's some homies that are kind of located a little bit closer than we're at. Tell them to get over there, man. Start calling cats, and everybody needs to get over there ASAP. So homeboy's calling people. He's calling homeboys. Hey, get over there to Beach Pad right now, man. We're having a situation. He runs it down to him. So the other thing is, as we're getting closer, I'm telling them, listen, bro. Now, when we get there, she told me that they got the apartment surrounded. I don't know how many it is, but there's probably at least 6 to 10 of them. Now, I got 2 bats in the back of this truck right here. I kept them back there for situations just like this. I don't play baseball. You know what I'm saying? So I told him I got 2 bats in the back of the truck. No matter what happens, bro, stay with me. When we pull up, jump out, we'll grab the bats and just try to make your way with me to the carport. We get to my El Camino, I got my 38 under one of my seats, bro, and we'll deal with these cats, bro. You know what I mean? So we're flying, we're going through stop signs, through stoplights. Like I said, driving through, where there was traffic. I'm driving up on the sidewalk, I'm knocking shit down, hitting poles. I kind of messed my truck up in the course of trying to get there, but I didn't care. All I was thinking about was she was in harm's way and they were gonna hurt her. So I finally get there. I hit Winchester and I bust that left on Impala and I fly down the street. I come flying up. We jump out, we grab the bats, and first thing I do is I look up at the apartment. All the windows are gone. All the windows, all the way around the whole entire apartment, the windows were gone. So I run around to the back to where, the carport was at to see if there were any of them back there. There wasn't. I kept on going around to the other side to where there was like the little, I want to call it like it's like a little patio area or whatever you call that right there. So they weren't there. They were gone. They basically left. They had just left when we pulled up. I ran up the stairs. I open up the door. She's in there. She's crying. There's glass every fucking where. They had these big round landscaping rock. I don't know. I don't even know how these dudes threw some of those rocks through those windows as big as they were. I was on the second floor, second story. So I don't know, man. They had some kind of catapult or something, but them them cats threw those rocks through my windows. I mean, I was picking these rocks up off the couches, off the living room floor, in the bedroom. They hit all the windows, every last one of them. So at that point, man, I felt like shit. It reignited that anger in me, as far as the homie. Like, man, bro, you're the reason why all this shit right here happened. This is exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. That's why I don't do nothing on my doorstep, bro. This is where I lay my head, bro. This is where my family's at, my girl. You know what I'm saying? I was hot, so I just told homie to go to his apartment, and I spent the rest of the day cleaning up the glass, cleaning up the broken windows. I went to Home Depot that same day and reinstalled all the windows with the help of one of my other regiment members. We put in all the windows, all brand new windows. Now, at that point, I probably should have left. I probably should have took her out of that apartment. These guys, obviously they identified where I lived. She was in harm's way. Having her there, I should have just did what, my first gut instinct was, to just move her up out of there, put her in a hotel, move her somewhere. If nothing more, take her all the way back up to Ukiah with her family, and let her stay up there for a couple of weeks. She was traumatized, man. She almost got hit by a couple of those rocks. And literally, man, can you imagine standing in your living room and the windows are, they're getting blown out from all sides. So it freaked her out, man. But, I didn't move her. I made a bad decision to stay there with her. My thing at that point was to just bring a lot of guns to the apartment. That's what I did. I ended up putting like 15 guns in that apartment. We went to John Santa Ana's, where I had all the guns stashed at. I went over there and I got like 30 guns. We had 60 something guns, got like 30 of them. I put 15 in the other apartment and about 15 in my apartment. It was overkill. I had 357. I had a 357 on the kitchen table, shotguns on the window ledges. I had, AK-40. No, I didn't have an AK-47 at that point. Most of the guns that I brought over there were handguns. The only long gun I had was shotgun. But I had like a 9mm on the, the living room, one of the end tables. I had a 22 in the bedroom for her. She never even shot a gun, but it was just try to make her feel comfortable. So, I had all these handguns in every room and at every point in the apartment. And I did the same thing with the other apartment. Now, let me say this. Now, when I'm thinking about this story, this situation actually happened a little bit later, okay? But since I'm already telling you guys, I'm going to tell you guys like this. So this this story, you guys got to understand, it's been a while, so I'm trying to remember these events. But now that I'm thinking about it, it happened. Everything that happened with this, situation with the Southsiders, it happened as I'm telling you. But Julio actually started to keep the dope there before this incident, because this was the incident that ended up making him not want to keep his dope there any longer. So let me just continue to tell you what happened with this, and then I'm going to back up and kind of tell you guys, how that all started. So anyways, we replaced the windows. I put the guns in there, and I basically posted up in the apartment. And I'm going to leave it at that. So because I have to clean this story up now. So I replaced the windows, had the guns there, and my plan was to just put 2 NR members in that apartment next door, have them stationed there. I wanted them to stay posted up, and their whole purpose was to maintain security on that apartment. and they had instructions. If these guys come back, I told them, I sat them both down. They're going to come back from the front. That's the only way they can come. It would be stupid for them to come from the back, the carport. I couldn't see that happening, but they're going to come from the front. So when they come from the front, I got the front corner because my kitchen and my living room window is right there. What I need you guys to do is, if you hear something kick off, go down the stairs. One of you go around this way, because that's the only way that they will be able to come. And one of you go around the other way behind the complex, so that, you know, there's like a 3-point, you know, a 3-point, we'll have a 3-point drop on these individuals. That's the only way that they could come. So they had their directives. They knew what they were supposed to do. Everything was set in stone. So nobody could say that they didn't know that they were supposed to do this, or they didn't know that they were supposed to do that. Bullshit. So just at this point in the story, just know that the windows were taken care of. At this point, I'm posted up. I got guns everywhere in there. My girl, she's still freaking out, but you know, even though she didn't want to stay there, she knew that I had a responsibility out there. She knew I was obligated. So even against her better judgment, she continued to stay there. But I kept on assuring her, don't trip. If they come, we got these fools. You know, look, there's guns everywhere in here. I got these other guys next door. So, you know, don't worry. I got you. I'm going to protect you. I'm not going to let nothing happen to you. So anyway, now let me back up, because right before that incident, Julio, the connection, I told you guys he had an issue on Poco Way, to where he ended up having to move. At this point, we had been working together. We established a good business relationship. He was comfortable with the way things were going, and he trusted me. There was a level of trust that was already established just based on how much product was being moved in, you know, the time frame that we had been working together. So he felt a level of comfort or a level of trust working with me. Now, that's when at one point he approached me about using that apartment. I want to say Bling Bling mentioned it to him, like, hey, oh boy just rented another apartment right next door to where he's living. You know, let me hit him up. Maybe we can keep the dope there. At the end of the day, Julio agreed to it. I couldn't believe it that, you know, he had that much trust in me. And, you know, when he first asked if he could keep his dope over there, I thought that it was probably going to be 15, 20, maybe 30 pounds, something like that. You know what I mean? And there was nothing agreed upon other than, you know, he was like, you know, can I keep it there? And the only thing I would ask is if, you know, I got a paisa, one of his friends. I don't think he called him a paisa. I don't think paisas call each other paisas, but he was like, yeah, I got, you know, one of my guys, if he can stay there, you know, throughout the day, just to keep an eye on it. And I was like, absolutely, man, you know, absolutely. So they moved the old dirty ass couch in there. And all this dude did was lay on the couch all day, smoke cigarettes, and occasionally walk to the liquor store. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, man. Your boy did it, you know, for a minute. I was pulling some scandalous shit. This dude was, you know, I wanted to rob Julio. I wanted to rob him. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I felt like this was my meal ticket. You know, after I seen how much dope he started keeping in the apartment, you know, I started salivating, man. This dude was keeping over 100 pounds there. So I was like, this is my meal ticket. At that time, I told you guys pounds were going for 9 grand. They were going for 9 bands. So do the math. He had over 100 pounds. At one point, I want to say there was 115 pounds that I counted. But, you know, there was two things wrong, or there were two things that got in the way of me robbing him. One is that I basically kept leadership abreast of everything that was happening with Julio. So they knew about him. They had a lot of information about him. They knew how we were doing business with him. They knew that we were networking with them. So they started to look at Julio as their connection. And they would always emphasize, man, continue to do good business with this dude. We need him. Don't come short. Don't ever, you know, fuck him over. Continue to work, work good with this dude, because we want to keep him in pocket, man. So that's what I did. But that's one of the things that stopped me from getting him. I knew if if I robbed Julio at that point, I would basically have to just ride off into the sunset and never be seen again, because it would have an adverse effect on me. There's no doubt in my mind that at that point, Corny and them would have been upset. Would it have rose to the level of expulsion? I don't know, but I wouldn't be willing to take that chance. I want to say maybe, because that would have messed up a lot of money. And by then, money was flowing. They were loving the way that the money was flowing in. And that's one of the reasons why when we found the GPS tracking devices, they just kind of wrote that off. So anyway, the dope, he would keep the dope inside one of the rooms in there. There was nothing in the room. He would keep it in the closet in duffel bags. So I couldn't rob the dude. I couldn't straight just get him the way I wanted to. And it would have been so easy. I would have went up in that apartment, snatched that little bicep up by his neck, smothered the dude, you know what I mean? Beasted up on him, and just, it wouldn't even have been a problem taking it. I would have literally just went in there, took it, and just left everything behind and just got on. But I couldn't do it. So the next best thing is to start dipping into that shit. And that's what I did. When that bicep would go to the store, he'd walk up to Winchester on the corner, and I don't know what he was getting, cigarettes, something to eat or whatever, but he'd walk to that store a couple times throughout the day. And when he would, I'd tell my girl, hey, go post up in the kitchen and watch from the window, watch for that dude to come, tell me when he's coming back down the street. Because I was in the apartment, what I would do is I'd take like a Dixie cup, one of them little plastic wax Dixie cups, and I take about 15 Ziploc baggies in there, and I go in there and I basically take a cup out of each pound. So I'd end up leaving with about 3 or 4 pounds of dope. Every time I would go in there, I was getting them, man. I was getting them, but I had to. I know some of you might look at it as like, damn, B, you're supposed to be doing good business with this dude. And yeah, maybe on some fronts, yeah, you know what I mean? But it is what it is, man. I wanted to get him. I couldn't get him the way I wanted to. So that was the next best thing. Anyways, this had went on for about, I want to say 3 weeks. Julio had kept the product there. Everything was going. Everything was going smooth. There was no issues. And then this situation ended up happening. So, in the story, everything I told you guys was accurate. However, the only part that I messed up on was that Julio actually started keeping the dope there before we ended up having this situation where they, basically knocked out all my windows. Now, at that point, he still didn't take the dope. Still didn't take it yet. Because at that point, what ended up happening is, well, you know what? This is a good point. This is a good time right here to end this episode, because the next episode is actually when I get into the shootout in Campbell. Those cats would eventually come back like I knew they would, and shit would kick off. So I don't want to, throw too much into one episode. I want to set that up for another episode so I can get into it and, go over all the details and everything that happened with you guys. Some of you guys don't watch these videos for no more than, I think the sweet spot's like 15 minutes. So when these videos are like 50 minutes long, a lot of you guys probably ain't even watching the whole video. So, maybe I need to start shortening them up so that I can get more videos out. Make sure you guys check in and check the community so that you guys know when we're going to be holding the giveaway. Again, if you haven't got your name, if you haven't put your name in that pool of prospective, people that want that dog, put your name in the community along with a short spill, something short that, hey, B, I got a daughter. She just graduated. She's doing good in school. She's doing everything she's supposed to. She's getting straight A's. Boom. That's all you need to say. You don't need to write a whole story, a novel. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to save you guys time. It's not that I don't want to read it. Some of you guys' stories are touching, man. Like I said, I wish I could give everybody a dog, but it's just not possible. Anyways, this episode 54 of Inner Demons. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll be back with 55. I'm out.